Hello everybody, my name is Offbeat Outlaw. Welcome to Game Design 101. Oh boy, it's been a little bit. Hi, I thought I should update you a bit on what I've been doing. First of all, playing a lot of Overwatch. No real excuse there, I've just been doing that, a lot. Another thing I've been doing though is, Brooklyn Tuesday and I have been designing a new TTRPG, and this has been an undertaking that is enlightening, inspiring, and a whole lot of fucking work. Today, we're talking about that new TTRPG. Before we get into this, hi! Please support the Patreon. It is the best possible way to support the channel, and you get to see everything I make 24 hours early. All of the videos that I make, and all the shorts, all that good stuff, 24 hours early, and it keeps me going. It keeps this channel running. You guys are the lifeblood of the channel. If you are itching to get your hands on some new mechanics and meat and chunks and things to excite you for other TTRPGs, if you're feeling a little burnt out from D&D, well, get ready. Today, I introduce you to Brooklyn Tuesdays and my TTRPG, Stacks. Now, this introduction is not a full release. These are just the basic rules. They are subject to change. In fact, I filmed an earlier version of this exact video, and then I changed some of the base rules. So these things are going to change a lot in the coming weeks as Brooke and I continue to develop this game. As Brooke and I continue to develop it, I wanted to give you all an update on it, some cool things, some interesting insights in designing, and some of the stuff that we're frankly doing. So, let's get into it. Thing number one. The first thing that I developed, that when it came to the system, when I had this idea to make this new TTRPG system, was I knew that I needed a new way to approach dice. Typical TTRPGs will have you roll a dice and apply a modifier in order to see whether or not you succeed or fail a given action of some variety. Whether it's trying to strangle somebody, knock someone unconscious, or give them a sweet kiss. All of it is usually divided into dice plus action. I thought this was underutilizing one of the funnest parts of D&D. All the dice that we own. We own so many dice and we never fucking roll them. We roll like maybe a few of them. And I thought that would be nice to capitalize on that lack of representation. Also, listen how good these fucking sound. Ooh, sexy. I wanted to capitalize on that. I wanted to make that interesting, and so I developed this system. You have a standard D20. Yes, we are running off of a D20 system. This is to ensure that the system has variance and interesting dynamics and is still variable enough that at the end of the day, it still feels like a game and you're not just smashing averages together. But instead of adding modifiers, you add what Brooke and I call secondary dice. This is your primary, and then you get a fistful of secondaries. Let's grab some. They're all going to be the same dice size, your secondaries, and they are based off of your modifiers. So let's just say, for example, you had a +5 modifier in strength. You're going to be adding 5 D8s to the given roll that requires that strength. Look at these dice. So pretty. Oh god. But how this works then is, let's say that I'm rolling to punch someone in the jaw. Well, in that case, I'll take my D12, my D20, and my D8s, roll them, add them all together, and see what I get. In this case, I got a 16, a 6, a 4, a 4, a 7, and a 4. That totals up to 41. 41 on the roll. That's a pretty high roll. That is much higher than you could probably get in D&D terms. But that is how this system works. And this has done a few interesting things. For one, figuring out the math of this game got a lot harder really fast. So for this, I enlisted the help of my brother. My brother is an insanely smart individual. He is a PhD candidate. By far one of the most mathematically inclined individuals on the planet, much less that I know. And he was like, damn, that seems tough. Figuring out the average roll of the dice is easy enough. You simply add the average of the D8s and the D20 together, and you arrive at, in this case, equals 33. The average dice roll of this dice set is 33. Figuring that out is easy enough, but what's the likelihood that you'll roll a 40? I don't fucking know. You have to count. That's it. You just have to count. And so I enlisted the help of my brother in order to expedite this process, and he created an app for me to do so. This was not a problem I foresaw initially. I knew it was going to be tough, but I didn't quite realize how tough it was. He has made an app for me that is going to help me figure out the math of the system to make sure that it all feels fun and fair when designing monsters. It's whack. That's all I'm going to say. It's absolutely whack, and it's kind of funny. But that is the basic start of this news of stacks. That is how the dice work. You have your primary and you have your secondary dice. Now, this is all well and good, but this quickly created a problem for Brooke and I. You're rolling so many dice, it's hard to do multiple attacks at once without bogging down the game with math. And we didn't like this. I tried testing it a few times, and I have a higher tolerance for math than most. Brooke did not. She quickly said, "This sucks. Offbeat, please figure this out." And I went, okay. So Brooke and I went back and forth on different ideas, and eventually we settled with when rolling for multiple attacks, which are going to happen when you have spells like things that work similarly to Scorching Ray, Eldritch Blast, fighters with their billion fucking attacks. Every action that has extra attacks in it will have a standard number of attacks that they can make. If you roll high on your secondary dice, you get to add an extra attack. If you roll low on the secondary dice, you subtract an attack. So maybe you roll a fucking fabulous 20 on your primary, but then you roll a 2, a 3, a 1, and a 3. You still beat the armor class, but you're making 2 less attacks at that point. And it's quick and easy to add up as well. That kept the pace. Because one thing that Brooke and I are focusing a lot in this new TTRPG is the pace of the game. It's ensuring that the game is fast. It's ensuring that the game, every turn in combat, you make your choice, you roll your dice, you get through it. With this new system of rolling the dice, we found that the attacks felt fun. The attacking felt interesting. It still kept that, am I gonna get the most out of this as possible? And opened up the avenue for really high damage. But this strike gave rise to something that Brooke and I called the meta of D&D. Now, if you've been on my channel for some time, you are very much aware of the fact that if you want to do a lot of damage in D&D, you need to do a lot of attacks. There is not really an advantage for doing less attacks and doing more damage. That's not really a thing in Dungeons and Dragons. I personally don't like this meta. Not because it's not fun, but because it's all there is. If you want to get rid of a problem, there's rarely a better option than just blowing it the fuck up with a billion Eldritch Blasts, or a billion Scorching Rays, or 3 trillion attacks. This is not fun. And our current system encourages the meta. And Brooke and I didn't like this. We wanted the meta to be buffing. We wanted the meta to be adding secondary dice to your hand size, so that by the time you're finally making your roll, you're rolling a billion fucking d8s. You count them all up. You get a critical success. And that is what we wanted. But we weren't getting that with this current system. So we quickly realized we needed something else. We started looking to other TTRPGs, and we noticed that Pathfinder and Lancer had a system that worked in similar ways that we wanted to incorporate. Pathfinder calls it resistance, Lancer calls it armor. We were going to be leaning more towards the armor side. A character that has armor flat debuffs every single attack a damage instance that they receive. So if they have 5 armor, they remove 5 from the damage, flat. This actually combats the meta, because there are some creatures that are going to have such high armor that you can't get through them with a billion attacks. You have to get a single big attack. This divides up evasion and armor into 2 separate things. The ability to evade attacks versus the ability to shrug them off. And this created a really interesting dichotomy between these two, resulting in the buffing being the flexibility that you need in order to get around all these problems. Someone might buff a creature or an attacker to do a lot of damage on their next attack, whereas someone might buff them over the course of their turn to deal a lot of damage as well. But all of these buffs, this flexibility, is what is required. That is the meta that we really fucking wanted for this new TTRPG. With our new dice system as well, we wanted to implement something that Brooke and I have both been batting back and forth. This system of conditions called stacks. It's where the system gets its name as a whole. These conditions work as follows. You receive X number of stacks. At the end of your turn, roll that number, and the number rolled does something. Isn't that exciting, guys? But stacks is a way to is a really fun mechanic as a whole. There are 2 types. instantaneous stacks and count stacks. Instant stacks are stuff like my bleed stacks, if you're familiar with my Paperwork Pantheon series that I stream every single Friday on this channel at 8 p.m. Eastern. But bleed stacks work as follows. At the end of your turn, roll the number of stacks in d6s. So if you have 3 stacks of bleed, you'll roll 3d6. You receive that in damage, and then double your stacks. This is a mechanical, mathematical way to represent bleeding out in the battle. You just start fucking dying, and it happens fast. You start off like, I'm okay, I'm not, and then you're dead. But this is an example of an instantaneous stack. This represents something that is happening effectively all the time. You are just bleeding. You're bleeding. It's every instant you are feeling it. But this didn't represent all conditions. We wanted stacks that also represent its conditions that are like, okay, nothing, boom, you hit the threshold. And thus we created count stacks. Count stacks work in a different way. For this example, I'm going to use sleep stacks as the example. You receive X number of stacks, you roll that number of D12s, add them all up. That number goes to a count that you keep track of. Once that count exceeds your current health, your character is instantly put asleep. Effectively, this count will keep building turn by turn by turn until at some point your character just passes out. This is another way to represent a condition that is building up over time. Think of it like a toxic or a poison, or for those of you who are familiar with FromSoft games, any number of their conditions that you see. They get that little bar that shows up, and then all of a sudden your character is infected with fucking STIs or whatever, and then you die into millennia for the 300th time. I'm not scarred, shut up. But that is stacks. Now, why did I bring this up when it came to the secondary dice? Well, there are going to be mechanics in the game that are going to rely on dealing more damage or applying applying stacks based on the rolls of your secondary dice. This is another way that we are making these secondary dice and adding more and buffing more, giving more dice into the pool is what is going to make the combat strong. That's what's going to give you your strength. It's not the ability to just pound them with lots of hits. It's being strategic, going, this person in our party applies tons of stacks when they roll well on their secondary dice. We need to give them more dice, and we need to make sure that those dice are hitting hard. So everybody buff them for their next attack, because this thing has a really high armor class and we need to punch through it. That is the thinking that we wanted in our TTRPG. We didn't want D&D's slap fests. Those are not fun. They're fun for a time, but they're kind of boring and stale in my opinion. I wanted something more, and Brooke and I both felt that this was something more. Let's talk about a few more things, and then we will finally, and then I'll tell you about a cool class that Brooke and I have already made. Somewhat mechanically. Next thing, let's talk about action points. Characters in this game do not have actions, bonus actions, or reactions. We have actions, and we have trigger abilities, and all of these run off of our action points. Every character has 5 action points that they regain at the start of their turn. Actions will cost any number of points, and you may use as many actions as you have points on your turn. Most actions will be costing anywhere from 1 to 2, some may cost 3. Trigger abilities are typically going to cost 2. Trigger abilities work similarly to reactions in D&D. Think of them sort of somewhat the same. But a trigger ability is basically, once a certain condition is met, you may use your trigger ability. It doesn't matter on whose turn it is. But you need your action points in order to use them. This system, in my opinion, allows for lots of flexibility. This was Brooke's idea. They felt that it allowed for a lot of flexibility within the game and a lot of flexible turns that we really liked when it came to establishing, creating, and enforcing this buffing-based meta. On top of this, we have a few different resources. A big problem that we felt in D&D, as we are both very avid D&D players, we felt that obviously marshals are stuck in the dirt. They don't have a presence in the game. They don't feel as strong as we would like them to be. So naturally, we had to fix that. And so we created 3 different resources. There's Arcane, Nerve, and Spirit. Arcane is spells. That's where you get all your magic from. Nerve represents a character's ability to overcome in battle. This is, think of it like combat spell, like martial based spells, like them tapping into this hidden well of power that resides within all physical beings, and spirit is life force. This is our 3 resources that we are playing with in this game in order to make classes feel diverse and interesting while still maintaining the power level. Giving all types of casters and classes access to powerful, strong abilities is a cornerstone of what we want to do in this game. I've just mentioned a few things. I'm not going into too much detail into anything, but I did get in a little bit with the dice. Because honestly, there's a lot of math, and if you guys want to know the math, that's awesome, but I know you guys fucking lie, so... But today I want to leave you with the Hex Dancer. Kind of like this brilliant moment that Brooke and I had when designing the system that kind of clicked into place the vibe we wanted. They are a class of spellcaster. They're not a full caster, nor are they a half caster. They are a 3/4 caster. They are powerful with magic, but not to the umpteenth degree. They're not the pure mages, but they are strong. Hex Dancers are a movement-based spellcaster that flies around the battlefield, applying various debuffs and buffs, launching up these walls in their wake, filling them with spells that buff enemies that shoot through them and protect them from the other side. Additionally, those that are specialized can also, instead of focusing on those protecting and buffing walls, they focus on their strength, gaining faster and faster and faster until they can channel all of their kinetic energy into a single magical strike. The Hex Dancer is a movement-based spellcaster that we really liked. We wanted them to be flying around the battlefield, always moving, always putting up new walls to increase buffs. Some walls upcast spells that are shot through them. We'll add 2 levels of spell points into it, increasing the damage. And we really liked this. This was so cool. And the damage-based Hex Dancer, the Blitz Runner, gains damage and gains a secondary dice based on the number of feet that it moves in its turn. So these 2 classes kind of pinpointed the meta that we wanted, and I think that's really, really neat. This is just some of the bare bones stuff that we've been working on. Honestly, there's been a lot more that we've already made, and I can't wait to start showing it off to you guys. But this is the introductory video to Stacks, a new TTRPG that will be coming as soon as I figure out when it's done. But thank you all so much for watching. My name is Offbeat Outlaw. Brooklyn and I are co-designers, I guess, co-directors of this new TTRPG Stacks. I cannot wait for you all to see it and play it and let me know what you think. If you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe, bing the bell, tell your friends, and please join the Patreon. It is the best way to support the channel, and you get to see everything that I make 24 hours early. But thank you, that is all. Thank you so much for watching. Get the fuck out of my house.